Yeah, look at Galway. Really, I suppose the biggest issue for them in the first half was getting their marquee players into the game. And I know they were playing against the breeze, but would say if you look at, I think was it 16 possessions, Conor Whelan combined, Conor Whelan, Brian Cannon, Colm Gannon, Conor Cooney. I think 5 points came off that. In the second half, then Conor Whelan obviously got 5 points. Brian Cannon, I think, got 4 assists. Colm Gannon got a couple of scores. Conor Cooney was fouled for a couple of frees. He got his point eventually. Really hard working performance. I think it was like 10 or 11 points came off, those possession and returned from those players. So yeah, look at it, very, very hard working performance, Colm and Cian. Like probably a reflection of their manager. That's I suppose that's the way Henry was. He really rolled up his sleeves, got the job done. Some classy scores as well. Probably a little bit of a concern that they didn't create, apart from the penalty, didn't really create a goal chance. Again, I know Jason Flynn came on, which was great to see him back, and I think they made all their subs after the 57-minute. Ronan Glennon, good to see him back as well. But nothing off the bench again, which we've mentioned here a few times, is a little bit of a concern. So yeah, I look at said unbeaten, like big score, and a great buzz around the place as well. You could see that afterwards, I suppose after the game, there was kind of a pitch invasion, all the kids hunting for autographs and selfies. Brilliant to see that back in Galway. Like the buzz is definitely back. I suppose you couldn't really judge it for the last couple of years with COVID, and I suppose last year losing those two championship games they played, they lost. Hard to kind of gauge where they were really at. But yeah, look at a lot of positives, and they're in good shape heading into the Leinster final in 2 weeks.
Something you touched on there, Christy, the industry that Galway have demonstrated. I know it's maybe in sport at high level that it has to be a given, but for Galway people, I think, and it does combine a bit with the buzz that they see that the team is given everything that they have. People, I think, generally accept that it's going to take a bit of time considering the players that have stepped away. And I know we've touched on this previously, but I think you're dead right in saying that. But the industry levels, that counts for a lot, Christy.
Look at Cian, it's absolutely everything. And you can see that with Cork at the moment. Just to digress for a second, like this, if you look at the Cork performance against Tip on Sunday, right? Like the jump out stat for me, right, was when I looked at it again, was like 14 occasions you had a Cork forward inside their own 45, as an outball option, as to take the pass, to build the play up through the middle, to build it through the lines. And I'd say if you were to look back at the Cork or the Clare and Limerick games, I'd say between the two games, I don't think that might have happened once or twice. So this is the modern game. I think that the penny has dropped for Cork like this. Brilliant players, unbelievable pace, class, skill. Again, if you let Cork do what they want, like Tip did on Sunday, they'll absolutely destroy you. But the Cork guys now have realised that the modern game is you can't just you tackle. You can't just tackle if a defender's coming out. You have to stay in the tackle, stay in the hunt, stay in that phase of play until the ball is actually turned over or the ball is out of play, and then you reset again. And so that's the way the game has gone. It's just you'll often hear now certain guys playing and I know now there's an ongoing debate about this. His numbers, he's not hitting his numbers, so he's not playing. But you can't be carrying players anymore. And I suppose that's the big test for Cork now. Just to speak about them before we go on to Galway again, they didn't meet that level of ferocity and physicality and intensity from Waterford and Tip, and they were able to try. But Cork weren't able to handle that stuff when they were met with it from Limerick and Clare. So the big test for Cork now is can they live in that world? Obviously they've adjusted to it. They're tackling, they're tracking back the pitch now, they're tracking runners, they're getting back, they're getting bodies back. Can they do that against the big teams, right? Galway, there was never an issue with Galway in terms of that level of work rate, that level of physicality, because they've always had it. I suppose they have some of the players have introduced this year, maybe not as physically commanding, like Thomas Monaghan, Jack Grealish, these guys, they were on the panel in 17, good players. Maybe don't have the, you go back to that Galway team that won the All-Ireland 17, absolute team of monsters, really physical, huge men, Johnny Glenn, all of these guys. So maybe the physical profile of Galway is a little bit different out to what it was then. But look at that, that's the way it is. It's, it's the way it is now, like Thomas Monaghan and Jack Grealish, their careers have been resurrected by Henry, but like they've obviously been resurrected for a reason, because their work rate is phenomenal, and they're able to thrive now in that system. And maybe it comes back to a point we spoke about here last week, is maybe it's taken those lads, okay, they're 25 now, they were minors in 2015, but maybe it's taken them that long to physically adjust, to physically get to that level. And I suppose that's the one thing you'd even look at Tip on Sunday, is their conditioning is not at the same level as the other teams, the top teams in particular. So yeah, look at it's just marrying that those qualities, that skill level, like people go on about the skill level in the past and the players, like really like the modern player, like, and I'm not disparaging any former players, but like the modern players have to be more skillful than there's ever been before, because you have to execute now in such, tight spaces, with such intensity around you, get that ball away quick. You probably only have less than, I don't know what you'd have on the ball on average, probably 1.7 seconds, 1.6 if you're lucky, or so 2 seconds if you're lucky. And this is the other conundrum, is like, there's more, I suppose there's more, build up play now. It's a lot like football. You have passes across the pitch back to the goalie. Players do have more possession, more time in possession in certain areas of the pitch. But like, in the middle third, up in your forward line, it's completely different game now. Like it's you might have to make 3 or 4 runs to even get a pass. So yeah, so look at it's all of that stuff, trying to adjust to that level of intensity. But look, as I said, Galway, the big thing about them, Cian, is they have a lot of experience still in the team, and you can even see that even. So you saw Pádraig Mannion, he's back cornerback the last day. I'd say, like the way the game has gone, you need at least one real quality cornerback man marker, right? So like, you see that with Limerick, with Sean Finn. You can see that with Clare now. Like Clare have 2 really good cornerbacks, like excellent cornerbacks. Rory Hayes, brilliant player. Paul Flanagan has been excellent. Even Cian Nolan, who came in the last day for his championship debut, absolute sticky out, like really you get nothing past him, right? So, and like Henry's probably thinking of Owen Cody in mind for the Leinster final, because he's probably going to need Pádraig Mannion to go back in there and to try and get a handle on Cody, because that's the way the game has gone now. It's you need guys that can it's 50-50 job, get on with it, win your own battle. Like, and I think in fairness to Galway, they have the guys that can do that.
In this year's championship, Christy, and it's a word I suppose that Galway hurling followers have grown accustomed to hearing, consistency, and they achieved a level of consistency, particularly under Micheál Donoghue, where you knew what you were going to get over that 3-4 year spell when Galway were obviously won All-Ireland and could have won another one, and they were a top team, and you knew that every day they went out that they were going to reach a certain level. But I think in this championship, while no one's talking about All-Irelands, I think that over the course of the 5 group games they've played, Henry Shefflin and the management team would have to be happy with the level of performance that they've given.
Absolutely, Cian. Like, and it's just that. So even if you look at the last day, right? Like the turnover numbers. Like I think like Galway, Galway got 9 points off turnovers. Now, some of those turnovers were actually forced from, like, there were cheap turnovers from a Dublin perspective, in that, I think 5 of those turnovers, like, were either shots that dropped short, or, they were blocked down by Galway defenders and the ball was turned over, and, Galway got 3 points off those 5 turnovers, right? Which are, really cheap turnovers from a Dublin perspective. But, like, we'd say the Galway forwards turned over the ball, was it 16 or 17 times, got 8 points off that possession, which is absolutely massive. And like we've mentioned this before, Cian, like really in the modern game, you kind of base your tackle numbers off your forwards. Like, if your defenders are making more tackles than your forwards, you're in serious trouble. Like it's your forwards really who govern, that kind of level of intensity, that level of pressure that comes at the other end. Like, and I know for a fact, so that, from hearing stories like the Limerick, that's what their attitude is. Like, they demand certain numbers off their forwards. And they'll kind of, that's a baseline requirement. So yeah, look at you get 8 points from turnovers that your forwards, generate. Like that's a sign that a team are really, really working hard, that are really bought into what's the level of intensity it's required. And look at, you look at, let's be honest about it, the two top teams. Limerick Rovers is the top team. Clare are, you'd have to say, second at the moment. You can't really judge Clare on Sunday, because Waterford were absolutely terrible, right? But you look at the 2 of the 3 goals that Clare got were turnovers forced by Peter Duggan. High up the pitch, ripping a possession from a Waterford defender in possession, for the first goal and for the third goal. So you're down at the other end of the pitch, defender. You're looking up and you're seeing this stuff, that your full forward is doing this stuff. It's absolutely massive. So there's Peter Duggan, to me, right? Okay, he could have had 3 goals the last day. Sean O'Brien made 2 excellent saves. Another shot that he had, a goal shot that was deflected over the bar. But to me, the turnovers were defined that performance from Peter Duggan. The Waterford couldn't handle him under the dropping ball. But that stuff, probably unseen stuff. And he didn't make the last pass for the first goal. Ian Galvin made the pass to David Reedy. But it all started with Peter Duggan. So that's the modern game, Cian. That's the way the game is now.
How good are this Clare team? Just we're on them, after being able to change it up and then still go out and do that to a Waterford side. I know they've had their problems, but that everyone was fancying to be an All-Ireland finalist nearly.
Yeah, great question, Colm. You'll have to say, Clare have been phenomenal, and that's without any bias. And that's what the big thing, right, you look at was even the last day. You have 3 players who didn't play last year. Obviously, Cian O'Connell was suffering from concussion. Peter Duggan was away. David Fitz would say wasn't really featuring last year, but David Fitz got 2-3 from play. Cian O'Connell 5 points from play. Peter Duggan, we spoke about his contribution. A couple of more assists. It's that's 3 players didn't feature that are, you could have. It was nearly a toss up for man of the match with the 3 in the last day, Colm. So, you've David Reedy back now from a knee operation. He got 1-2 the last day. Shane Meehan, who's come in from a hamstring injury, played, has come on in the last 2 matches and really, really been impressive. A young player still under 20. So look at David McInerney's been in brilliant form. They're just and obviously Tony Kelly is Tony Kelly, but there's a lot of criticism, not a lot of criticism, but people are saying after the Limerick match, well, look at, Tony got 16 points. There's an over-reliance on Tony, but there's not really. Okay, obviously he's an exceptional player. He wasn't even tugged out the last day. And we know we've mentioned about Paul Flanagan. Paul played last year, a guy that, would have captained the Clare Miners in 2010, the All-Ireland final, was in and out, got injured for the 16 league final, kind of was out of the team then for a while afterwards. And, he's a year older than Tony Kelly and that crew. He's playing unbelievable stuff, So yeah, look at and a big team as well, Colm. That's the one thing that Limerick learned the last day. Limerick know now they cannot physically overpower or bully these guys. They will stand up to them. They're the physical profile to match them. And Shane O'Donnell, I suppose made his name as a goal scorer, but he's out wing forward now. Maybe he's had to change his game a bit as well from that concussion. He admitted that himself last year. So, incredible player. And Shane got 5 points. Shane really is so selfless. Superb player to engineer scores. So, yeah. And the thing is, you still have players to come back. Mark Rogers, Aidan McCarthy, 2 young players who played last year. Aidan McCarthy's a brilliant player, excellent young player. He broke his ankle around Christmas time. I don't know what his story is. He's on the way back, but the longer this championship goes on, the stronger Clare are going to get. And you'll have to say at the moment, Colm, they have been the story of the championship, because a lot of people wouldn't have had them in their top 3 at the outset of the round robin, and now they've ended up top in the group. So yeah, unbelievable job by Lohan.
And it's a long time we should go back since Clare won a Munster hurling title. How much would that mean to the county? Obviously they've won All Ireland in Ireland in between, but it's been a long time waiting.
Yeah, very long column. And I think it's something the players are very, very conscious of. Like 98, it's too long, really. And like for years there, like a record in Munster was horrendous. Like it was terrible stuff, So yeah, look at that. We're in a Munster final in 17. We're in a Munster final in 18. Lost both of them to Cork. Back in a Munster final now against Limerick. Like no incentive needed there. And yeah, look at a lot of these guys. Look at a lot of them have 3 All-Ireland 21 medals. They have All-Ireland senior medal. Like I think look at it, that there's maturity there now. But I think the biggest positive for Clare, Colm, is the emergence of so many of these young guys. Like Adam Hogan came on the last day, brilliant young defender, won a Harty with St. Joseph's Tulla this year, doing his leaving cert next month. And like you could actually say, right, that okay, Kilkenny beat Limerick in that under 20 final at the weekend. But you could say like the Clare could have been in that final. Like they absolutely blew the under 20 Munster, the first round round robin game. Had 6 goal chances, didn't take them. Got heavily punished. Shane or Cahill O'Neill got 1-1 in injury time to win it by a point. No, Limerick didn't have him for after that. Clare would have probably lost Shane Meehan, from that 20 side as well. But like I think if Clare had beaten Limerick in that under 20 game, they would have beaten Cork a week later. You could see I was at that game, like when the heat came on and Cork got it back level later on. Clare just didn't seem to have the confidence to drive on. But like, if they'd won that game, it could have been Munster under 20 champions. So like that's been the most positive thing. Like obviously the minors were well beaten by Galway at the weekend, but like I think that Clare team could still yet come back and get to the Ireland final. I think that, I don't think Saturday was in any way an accurate reflection of that Clare team. The Galway obviously were really, really impressive. But, like it's been, can you consider where Clare were last year? Minors beaten by 40 points. Another poor campaign for the under 20s. Like, look at how much it's flipped. It's like it's been incredible that we've obviously, that generation of Tony Kelly, that group, like they were just an exception. It's never going to happen again. Sure, yeah. Hopefully it will. To win 3 Ireland 21s. So yeah, that's been the real positive, Colm, is that we look like we're coming again. Like
just something you touched on there, Christy. Paul Flanagan, a man with Galway connections, his uncle carrying out good work with the Mike Cullen club at the moment for the past number of years. But just that element, Christy, where I suppose guys, they won so much at underage, and it's similar. It's something we've spoken about at length before about in Galway terms, where it's different to translate minor under 21 success into senior level. But just the fact that Clare just have a nice blend at the moment, where they have guys like Paul Flanagan amongst others, and then the newer crop of guys who are coming through. That blend is just good, because I'm sure it's just the fact you have guys who are used to winning, and the younger guys are coming into a camp and they really want to deliver for Clare.
Yeah, look, we've mentioned this a few times, Cian, like that, like a lot of these guys are coming in on the back of absolute, like, wasteland underage careers, like not, in terms of, matches, like played on Clare underage teams that were absolutely destroyed, like, so, and at times that might not necessarily be a bad thing, like if you look at, would say, we've mentioned this before about, that Galway have won more Ireland minors in the last 30 years than Limerick, Clare, Wexford, Dublin, and Waterford, right? That's in their entire history. So, like, you look at this Galway minor team again now, there are a couple of absolutely exceptional players, Rory Burke, Aaron Island, of course, but these guys have got to be brought through now, right? And, we mentioned about the 15 minor team, about how long it's taken some of those guys to establish themselves as really, really serious inter-county players. So, I think with the other thing with the Clare lads is like that they're, some of them have come through the kind of Harty system as well. Like Dermot Ryan came through with Ard Skull, and like, the Clare college system has definitely been an awful lot better in the last few years. You saw that with Tulla, Flannels won the Harty in 2020. You know, like that stuff as well gives you a bit of confidence, right? So yeah, look at, I think the big thing is you're coming into a setup, right, that, you know, allows you the opportunity to express yourself. And I think that's the one thing with Lohan. I'd say, you know, it's probably not overthinking it too much. You get your chance, you go out, you know, if you take it, you know, you hold on to the jersey. But yeah, look at it, it's maybe with Galway in the past, you know, a lot of guys that were come in and maybe the same faith wasn't shown in them that was shown in other players in other counties. So and I think in fairness to Henry, he's done that. He's, like I said, he's reinvested that faith in the likes of Thomas Monaghan, Jack Grealish, you know, and those guys, you know, Thomas in particular has really, really profited. Like, so yeah, look at it. It's just, as I said, it's the modern game. It's absolutely, like, when you see the hits going in now, Cian, like, it's, you know, you have to be able to absolutely be able for this stuff to survive.
Well, Christy, I suppose just staying with kind of the Munster thing there, we've Tipperary and Waterford are out, like, but for Tipperary now, they have to hang around and maybe play another game or not play another game if Kerry win the Mcdonough Cup, which is its own story in itself. Like, you know, it's a kind of the unfair system there in the Mcdonough Cup that for Kerry to win if they win it.
Yeah, and I suppose, look at, this is probably, you know, an element. It's, in lots of ways, it's very unfair. Like, you know, you've seen, you know, 6 teams in Leinster the last couple of years, and you know, like, I suppose really for Kerry, there's, you know, it's kind of this yo-yo effect that I suppose they're trying to maybe avoid in some ways. Like, you know, do you put Kerry in with, you know, Cork, Tip, Clare, Limerick, Waterford next year and let them take, you know, and no disrespect, like, but it would happen because, you know, you can't just make that jump. In fairness to Westmeath, they've, you know, they shipped some fair hidings, but you know, I think the one big advantage Westmeath have had, Colm, is like they have been in Division 1, right? You know, Laois have been there. Like, Kerry would come in from, you know, not that level in the league, you know, to make that jump up. But like, yeah, look, you know, and it's Kerry's 3rd year in the Mcdonough final, like, and, you know, Antrim will be favourites, but obviously that, you know, they'll be using a lot of that hurt from the last couple of years. So yeah, like, it's kind of ridiculous, like, really, that, you know, you win the Joe McDonagh and you have to face a playoff. If Kerry win it, they have to face a playoff against Tip, which Tip obviously won't be looking forward to, you know. And Kerry actually beat Tip in the Munster League back in January, so, you know, and the game would obviously be on in Kerry as well, I'm sure. So that would make it a little bit trickier. But yeah, look, I suppose this is the problem. And, you know, one of the Carlow lads wrote about this a few years ago very, very well, that, you know, it's trying to protect, you know, you give teams that year or two grace, like, where, you know, you give them a chance. Okay, they're going to take hidings, they're going to take, you know, probably unmerciful beatings, like, but, you know, is that still going to allow them to learn and to develop and even just put those lessons to good use? Like, I think if Kerry go up, like I said, if Kerry were to win the Munster Championship, like, they are a Munster team, you could say they're well entitled to be in there. But, you know, I'm sure those guys, okay, they know that they take some desperate hidings, and especially with the score difference factor, you know, you could have teams saying, right, lads, we got to beat these boys by 40 points, you know, and that's the way teams would be thinking, you know. But I still think that those lads would nearly prefer to say, well, look, we know how far we're off, and it gives us an opportunity to say, well, look, here's the level we've got to get to if we're ever going to be anyway competitive. And look at, you know, at the start of the championship, you know, after the first couple of games, like, would you have said that Westmeath were going to draw with Wexford? Now, I know Wexford had 21 wides and they made a couple of, you know, poor mistakes that cost them, but, you know, like, and the other side of it, then, Colm, the other angle to last Sunday, when you know, where do Westmeath go now? Like, they don't play again until next January. So, like, you know, okay, you have to draw the line somewhere. They finish behind Dublin. You can't say, well, we give Westmeath another game. But, like, we've mentioned this so often, I just don't think they have a right, lads, where it's, you know, you have teams gone now until next January. It's like, it's too long. It's too long from at the top level in hurling and football.
Like, does there need to be like a complete rejig, like, and sacrifice the Munster Hurling Championship and have a bigger open competition? Like, I know it's not something anyone in Munster ever want to see happen, but if you want to have competitive games and, you know, lots of games, is that the kind of thing you have to go? Because we've seen the league is just kind of not even taken as much seriously by teams as anymore.
It's an excellent question, Colin, because I think, you know, the fact that Waterford now have you know, like, bombed so dramatically in the last two games, and you know, we're emphatic league champions. Like, I think teams had no interest in the league, but I think now next year there'll be absolutely zero interest, because, you know, you look at other teams in the league, like Clare didn't have a good league, you know, were hammered in their first game by Cork, lost their second game to Wexford. Look at Clare now. Like, look at Limerick in the league. Everyone was saying, geez, have Limerick gone off the rails? Like, and look at them now. So, but I still think, Colin, that the biggest issue, there's two issues here. The biggest issue with the league is, you know, with all respect to the bottom teams, there's no fear of relegation for the top teams, you know, and there's a kind of a comfort zone there where they can cruise. They can say, right, we've got to win one game, you know, and we're grand. So, like, you compare that to Division 1 in football, like, it's absolute cutthroat stuff. So the other thing is, I do think they have the round robin right. It's like, it's a super competition, like, brilliant drama. You know, I think the championship format is right, but I just think that they need to try and maybe to try just even, you know, get more games, some capacity, you know, like, well, what have you know? You've 9 hurling matches left, and we're not even out of May yet. Like, you know, like, I remember, like, when the round robin championship started in 2018. Like, I remember Clare played their first game against Cork. I think it was May the 20th. So, you know, now we've, like, 22nd of May. You've Tip and Waterford already gone. You know, Dublin are gone. So yeah, like, I still think that, and we've mentioned this before here, I just don't think the balance is right. And especially when, you know, okay, it's not like there's been a lot of talk about county championship not starting until August or September. You know, I think that's been kind of, you know, I've saw it on social media where that's not true. But there's going to be no championship starting in June. Like, no, there's going to, like, Tip or Waterford aren't going to be starting their club championship in June. I'd be fairly doubtful they will.